Thank you for joining the Red Hot session on ZDM. I'm Amalraj, and today I'm joined by my colleague Carlos, and we are from Cloud Data Management Modernized team, and together we'll be delivering today's session. So I know for some of you, this may not be your first ZDM session. You might have attended some sessions from PM. So I think it is helpful to have an agenda so that you know what we are going to cover. So we'll have a brief overview about database migration, and then we will discuss about some introduction, something about ZDM, and then followed by ZDM logical offline migration demo. And then we will, of course, discuss the business cases for ZDM. And at the end, we will have a dedicated Q&A session. But that doesn't mean that you cannot ask queries while the session is going on. Our panelists are always available throughout the session. So please feel free to ask your queries, and we are happy to answer those queries. So let us start with different migration types that is available today. So there is something called offline migration and online migration. In terms of, in case of offline migration, we perform an initial copy of the database, and that copy can be a logical copy or it can be a physical copy. Once you do that copy, we transfer that one-time copy to the target database, and then you restore it there. And for this entire duration of this exercise, that is offline migration, your application has to be offline. That means it needs more downtime. Whereas in case of an online migration, you perform an initial copy, that is again a logical copy or a physical copy, and then you transfer it to the target. And from then on, we copy the incremental changes from the source and then apply it on the target, so that you can keep syncing your target until you are ready for the cutover or the switchover date. During all this time, from the backup, from transferring, restoring, applying incrementals, during all this while, your application can remain online, and that is the beauty of this migration. And only at the end, okay, when you perform the switchover, depending upon how complex is your application and what other things are using, there will be a negligible downtime for a online migration at the end when you switch over. Then we have something called physical and logical migration. Physical, as the name indicates, where we physically copy the database files from the source and then we restore it on the target. It has some restriction in terms of what kind of source platform you can have and where you can restore in the target. Again, some restrictions in terms of the database version. It has to be basically same on source and target. But in case of a logical migration, instead of copying the files physically, the database itself, we take a logical extract of the database that is using a data pump. And then that extract or the dump file is copied to the target. It is restored there. And that is how we perform the logical migration. So this is more flexible in terms of what kind of platforms you can have in the source and in the target in terms of the DB versions. Again, all these things we are going to discuss in details in the coming slides. And then we also have something called direct connection and indirect connection. Direct connection is nothing but you have a connection to the source from your target. Of course, you might need to connect the source either through a site-to-site VPN or using a fast connect. But in case you cannot access the source due to some restrictions, firewall or something, then we typically perform the migration using an agent. That is where we call it as an indirect connection migration. Now, it is easy to go through the theory or hear it from me, and it will be really tough to understand the physical and logical migration differences unless you are an expert. So that is why we are here to help you through an example of how you can easily differentiate between a physical and logical migration, because that is very important when you discuss with the customers, right, how they want to perform this migration. So if you look at the source, we have a text document as it is shown in the slide. And if you want to physically migrate this text document to the target, you can simply copy the file and it is restored on the target. So this is a physical migration for a simple plain text file. Similarly, if you want to perform a physical migration for a database, which is on x86 Linux, we physically copy the database files to the target and then restore it there. So it is simple. In case of a logical migration, we have the same text document over there. It has contents. instead of physically copying, we logically extract. So for a text document, logical extraction means you copy the contents, okay, and then you paste it on the target. So here in the target, you can notice the target format of the text is different. It is .txt. So that is the beauty of this migration. It doesn't have to be the same, okay? Because we are logically extracting and pasting it. Similarly, for a DB, we extract the logical contents like a data pump, and then you copy the dump to the target and then import it. So in the source, the DB is maybe a DBCS or maybe, I mean, it is on on-premises, but in the target, it doesn't have to be the same flavor. Okay, it can be an autonomous DB also. So this is this is to make you know to understand to understand the difference between physical and logical very easily. Now we have seen the migration types, and how do we map these migration types to the targets that we have in the cloud or in the on-premises? So the first 4 targets and the first 3 are actually co-managed targets in the Oracle Cloud infrastructure, and the last 4th one is Exadata on-prem. For these targets, yes, you can perform logical or physical migration, whereas for the last 3 targets, we can only perform logical migration. So for the last 3 targets, irrespective of what is the use case scenario, you cannot go for physical because this is autonomous, where you don't get access to the file, the operating system or to the container DB. So that is why you can only go with logical migration to autonomous DB, where it's shared, dedicated, or in cloud customer. Whereas for the first 4, I said we can have logical and physical migration, but this is again a general high-level overview. Okay, again from case to case. For example, if you want to migrate to Exadata ExaDBD, we can go with logical or physical, and it is again case to case. That is why we recommend you to reach out to us whenever you are in doubt or you need more clarity. And we also offer database migration approach workshops where we sit with you and sit to the customer and take the inputs and understand what is the situation, what is the use case, what are the requirements, and then we suggest the best possible recommended method for the migration. Now, we have seen the different migration types and how to map them against some typical targets. But let us understand what kind of solutions that we have in migrating the databases to OCI. So if you look at, there are too many solutions available. Okay, we can use ZDM or DMS or data guard or data pump. So all these solutions are available. And today in the next slide, I'll show you where does ZDM stands among these solutions. So if you look at the pyramid, at the bottom, we have data pump, Golden Gate. Some of the tools I haven't mentioned like data guard and RMAN. So all these are well-known tools used by our database experts for database migrations to OCI. So these are still valid. Okay, and people, if they are expert in that, yes, they can use it. But in case, okay, I mean, the issue or one downside with these tools is you need to have the expertise, plus there are a lot of manual steps. So whenever there are manual steps, you have to be careful because they are prone to errors or human errors. And that is why Oracle came up with the idea of ZDM, Zero Downtime Migration, the software, which can help you to migrate your databases, and it can automate most of the steps. It can perform logical and physical migration. It can perform migration to the cloud, to the on-prem. So a lot of flexibility with ZDM. And on top of ZDM, in the top of the pyramid, we have OCI database migration, which is a cloud native service, which is built on top of ZDM. So but it can only do logical migration and only to the cloud targets. It's a great tool, and it is, again, when comparing with ZDM, it can only do logical migration, but it offers you a UI-led experience. So those who want to go with a logical path, yes, they can also use DMS, and they can go to OCI console and use DMS from there. So now, at least I hope you got some fair idea about what kind of migration types we have, how to map them, or in case, how, if you are confused, how to reach out to us. Or now let us laser focus on ZDM because that is our interest today. So ZDM is basically a lightweight software where it is a migration orchestrator. It acts on your behalf. Okay, when you select typical migration paths, it automates most of the stuff for you. And of course, you can customize, the workflows. You can put pause and you can have your own scripts. But for some of us, okay, it might look like a magic wand or a silver bullet. I don't blame, because that is how ZDM for someone, right? Because of the pure automation it has and the number of steps it automates and the number of scenarios it can cater to, it can solve. It is almost like a magic wand. But however, we need to keep in mind that no, for all situations or scenarios, ZDM is not the one word. There might be a few scenarios where people go for some other tool. That is, of course, that is again, it is used case to case. And also, no, you shouldn't be considering, or somebody, you in the sense of whoever is using ZDM, shouldn't be considering it as a one-button tool where somebody comes and just run the migration command and then sit back and relax. Of course, that ZDM is doing, but ideally, you should understand what it is doing, what kind of migration the ZDM is initiating, okay, and which phase you are in, so that you have, or the customer whoever is doing the migration has complete control over the migration. It's not a surprise, if it gives something, if it is in a particular phase, you shouldn't be confused. Where am I? So understanding about your migration and ZDM really helps, okay, to have a successful migration. Now, if you look at the benefits, okay, it is a very simple tool. Of course, there is a slight learning curve for anything, but once you learn it, it works like a champ, because right, the kind of automation for example, for a physical migration, you might have to do a number of steps. But for a ZDM, you initiate it, it takes care of everything, starting with backup, restoration, all those things, even for role switchover. So it is end-to-end automation except the initial steps, for setting it up and then using it. And that it is built on top of Oracle MA best practices. So it is MA compliant, and software as such is free. But again, if you are using it for logical migration, there are certain limitations in terms of the number of days the migration running. And the limitation is really huge, because for an active migration, 180 days is the limitation, beyond which it is actually licensable, the Golden Gate usage. And in a nutshell, it is a very simple software. It is a managed software where it offers comprehensive and fleet-scale database migration with you can perform dry run and resumable options. You can also do multiple migration in parallel with one ZDM host, and all these things are auditable. So you get the audit trail. Whatever ZDM is done, it is audited. So now, at least I hope you got a fair idea about where does ZDM stands among the solutions, and why it is important to understand about ZDM. Now let us see what all source databases and source platform and target platform it supports. So it supports standard edition databases, enterprise edition databases, starting from 11.04 till 21C and beyond. And for the source platforms, yes, it supports Oracle database running on Linux, Solaris, AX, and Amazon RDS. And for the target, all the PaaS Oracle database services in OCI, which is the co-managed databases like Oracle Base Database or Autonomous Database, and ExaDBD, and even Exadata on-premises is supported by ZDM. So with that said, I think it is time to get into more details about physical and logical migration with Carlos. So over to you, Carlos.
Thanks, Amal. So we are going to just take a view about the differences between the offline, online physical migration. In this case, the physical migration is based on backup. So you can use physical migration with a backup location. And you can always use a physical offline migration with a standard edition or enterprise edition. It doesn't matter which edition you're on. You can always do a physical offline migration using this backup location. But for the online migration, physical migration, things are a little bit different because it uses data guard. So you need enterprise edition to do online physical migration. So if you you are going to do a migration from a standard edition, you cannot do a physical online. This is important. apart from using the backup location, you can have another method of transporting the data between the source and target database. In this case, you can have the direct data transfer or even standby or other methods. But this is only for Enterprise Edition. Next, please. Amal, next. Thank you. Okay. So, and for the logical migration, things are a little bit different, because you can have online migration for logical migrations, even though you have a standard edition, because it uses the backup location, but you can use database links. So in this case, you can use the data pump for logical migration for both standard edition and enterprise edition, but for online migration, logical migration, you can always use a standard edition. So this is not the limit of the physical online migration. With logical online migration, you can migrate standard edition in an online mode. Yeah, because it uses the same data pump, and you use Golden Gate, and Golden Gate can work for standard or enterprise edition, so there's no limit for this. Is we're using this Golden Gate online. Yep. So just to summarize, there are the differences between physical versus logical. We are going to summarize. The physical migration in general is more restrictive, because you have to have the same operating system, same database version, same database edition. You can do conversions from non-CDB to PDB, but with some restrictions. You must migrate the entire database at a time, and you cannot use physical migration, as we said before, to autonomous. Of course, we talk about the enterprise edition and online restrictions for the standard edition. And another important thing is transparent data encryption is mandatory in the physical migration. You can, with the physical migration, you have a seamless switchover. So you, at the end of the migration, the source database change the role with the target database, so the target database will be the primary database. So it's seamless, because it's kind of switchover of the data guard, and you can do a switch back just in case, because after the migration is complete, the online migration, the two databases are linked by a data guard. So all the activity that is execute against the target database, the new database, is going to be replicated to the source database, to the regional database. So you can do a fallback, but in this case, ZDM does not do this. You should do it by hand, but it is possible to do a switch back just in case. Yeah. For the logical migration, is more flexible. In general, you can have different operation system, different database versions. You can migrate from 11 to 19, for example, 19, for example, even different editions. The non-CDB to PDB conversion is without any restriction. And one important thing is to say that logical migration is schema-based. So you typically move schemas from the source to the target database, and this allows you to do incremental migrations, because, for example, if you have a very big database with a lot of schemas and that are supporting different applications, and you want to migrate the different applications in an incremental way, you should do a logical migration, because you could be migrating bunch of schemas at a time. So this is incremental migrations are possible with logical migrations. Of course, they are logical are intended to migrations to autonomous, no restrictions about the edition, and the online migrations, and we said before, are based on the Golden Gate marketplace. It's important to say that you must use the marketplace edition for migrations, because it's the only one that is supported. TD is not required. you must do a manual switchover, because there's some point in the migration in which you are going to do the switchover from the applications from the source database to the target database, and finally the switchback or fallback is not possible, at least not possible per se. Of course, you could do some infrastructure using another Golden Gate installation to keep the databases in sync, but it's far beyond the ZDM features. Okay, next one. So we're going to do a small demo. We're going to be doing a migration from a logical offline migration from an 11 database to an autonomous 19C database. So it's like the oldest database to the newest database, and it's going to be offline. And because of the time we have, we're going to be doing it very quickly. So yeah, I'm going to be share my screen. Yeah, hopefully you are all, everybody's seeing my screen. And we are going to use just one compute instance with the ZDM, which is running, and the Oracle database, the target database. So it's going to be this autonomous database here. The source database is an 11 database, which is on another tenancy, just to mimic like if it was in the on-prem venue of the customer. So it's not visible here because it's away from here. It's on another tenancy. And just to see how it looks, this is the 11.204 database, and here we are going to be migrating this DB migration test, which has some tables. We can check the versions here. Sorry. So this is 11G, and just to check all the tables that we are going to migrate, we can do this simple select. I'm going to maximize skill developer window. So there are a bunch of tables, but some of them, they have 5 million rows, 500 rows, etc. So, and this migration test schema, this is the target database, and in this schema, in this database, we don't have this DB migration test schema. Okay. So with this in mind, we proceed. We are in the, I'm connected to the ZDM node, which is a ZDM 21.4. We have a couple of sessions, SSH sessions, and with the ZDM works as a service. So first of all, the ZDM service must be started, and we can check the ZDM service with just this command status. So we can see that the service is running, so we can go and run a migration with the service running. So first of all, when we do a migration, we have two modes of running the ZDM migration command. One is the evaluation method, which in which the ZDM does some checks about, for example, connections to databases, space, and so on. So this is that we use, that everybody should do before doing the actual migration. This evaluation method does not anything. It only checks for the requirements and keeps the and gives you some security about the migration itself is going to be right. So to execute the evaluation, it's the same command that we use for the migration, but with a eval parameter. So we're going to do the evaluation. We are going to be using this skip visor because one of the things that ZDM does is do a CPAT evaluation about the differences that and the checks about the source and target databases and the problems you may find in the migration. The CPAT is yep.
Yeah, just a second. Can you increase the font a little bit?
Oh yeah, sure. Good.
Yeah, good. Maybe a little bit more. This is fine, I think. Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to skip this advisor. We talk about it a little bit later, but we're going to skip it because of the time that we don't have some time for this demo. So we start, and ZDM asks for some parameters. For example, the system password. This is the user that is going to be used for the migration from the source database, and for the target database the same. This is for the admin. So once you have this running, the job is running, and you can check how the job is doing with just another command, which is ZDM CLI, and you query the job with the job ID. In this case, is the 54. So you can see here that there are some validations that are going to be done, which is it's going to be validating, for example, the first one is validate the target, verification of the target database exists, database type, credentials, and so on. The same for the source database. Access credentials, parameter settings, for example, the remap of table spaces. Even if you are using Golden Gate, it checks that the Golden Gate user has the right grants and so on. Then it validates the data pump settings, if the export directory exists, if there's enough space for the dump files. Again, the same for the target. Checks that the data pump import directory exists. In case that you're using DB links, it checks some DB links aspects, and then ZDM does a prepare data pump source that checks for the new directory if required, the authorization token if it's needed, and for the source database, finally, ZDM does an estimation for the data pump size. So all of these phases, you can have an detailed information if you do a cat of the log file. So if you can check this log file, and here you're going to be finding all the things that ZDM validate targets. That's, for example, fetching details of autonomous database, type of OCI database. So this all the detailed information about the phases, you can have it in the log file of the job. So after a while, so it's like 1 minute and 30 seconds, 13 seconds. You have all the phases completed and everything seems okay. So in this case, we can proceed to the actual migration. The actual migration is the same command that we execute before, but without the eval option that we use in the evaluation. So clear. Again, we are going to do a skip advisor and to skip the CPAT. Again, ZDM asks for the passwords of the system for the source database and for the password of the user of the, in this case, the autonomous database admin user. So again, we have another schedule job. This is why ZDM, since ZDM works as a service, you can even disconnect from the session because the job is running in the background. So you can check, for example, in this screen. And again, we are going to be commenting the different phases that we are going to be running in this migration, but you can see that you can run the query ID. But for example, if you want, this is the 55 on another session, it was 55, right? Yeah. Yeah. So you can monitor, for example, with a watch. You can have this second window, and you can use it. For example, you see that all the phases are going to be completed, and the refresh of the screen and how it goes through all the phases that ZDM is working. So again, there are new phases here. We said before that we went into the estimate source. It was the same. The first phases are the same that in the evaluation mode, but there are new phases. The first is prepare data pump target. It checks for the data pump directory. For example, if the ZDM needs some authorization token for the object storage, it gets from there. If the migration uses the link, checks the links, and so on. So then there's a new one, the new phase, which is data pump export source, and this is where the data pump export starts. And ZDM starts and monitors the data pump export on the source database. Then when the data pump export is done, the next phase is the upload dumps, in which the dump files generated in the export phase are uploaded into the object storage in OCI, using generally kernel. And once the dump files are in the object storage, there's the data pump import target, in which ZDM starts the data pump import. It can be from the object storage directly in case of the autonomous database, or the import is done in a local directory for the other database targets. If you are using, for example, DBCS as a target, the contents of the object storage bucket are going to be downloaded into a local directory, and the import data pump is going to be done from there. So there's a small difference between autonomous and the rest. But in Autonomous can import directly from the object storage without downloading the dump files to any local file system. So once the data pump is terminated, it's finished. Then there's the next phases are more or less for tidy up all the process. For example, the post data pump source removes objects and created at zero runtime. Data pump target fixes invalid objects, can remove the database access credentials from, for example, the autonomous database to the object storage, and these phases are all tidying up the ZDM execution pieces that ZDM used throughout the migration. Then the post actions, for example, removes the autonomous wallet, the autonomous database wallet used for the ZDM, and finally a cleanups that executes some cleanup activities in the source. Again, in this case, we are the migration is in the data pump import target. So now it's doing the import phase in the autonomous database directly from the object storage, because autonomous can import. Again, all the details of the phases, you can check whatever is happening in the migration, just checking the log. So there's a lot of explanations here about how the phases are developing and all the tasks that either ZDM or even the tools that ZDM is using are executing with the database. So one question that always comes always arises when we are talking to customers is it always comes to the question, how much time will it take to do a migration? Well, there's no answer for this. Well, the answer is it depends. Depends on the networking, depends on the database source and target, activity in the database during the migration, even the ZDM node power, because in this case we are doing a very small ZDM compute instance. But of course, the networking is very important. But again, the question always comes up from customers: how much time will it take? Okay, the question is, the answer is it depends. It depends because there's a lot of factors that can impact. We can have a little comments about the ZDM, the CPAT in ZDM. CPAT is a, if you hear about it, is a kind of it's a tool to facilitate, to make it easier the migration, because the CPAT connects to the target to the source database, well, to the both of them, and it checks different aspects of the migration that may have problems, and it does a lot of checks. And this pre-migration advisor tool is included. There's a phase for that. In this case, we jumped it because we skip it with the parameters because of time. But you can see that here the pre-migration advisor phase is you can get the pre-migration report, because the CPAT generates a report and that gives you information about the checks that it has done and how the things should go in the migration. Just to show you how it looks like. Well, this is a typical CPAT report. In this case, we are doing a CPAT that gives you the version, gives you the database details, gives you the lot of information about, for example, the version, and then there's a list of the checks that CPAT does, and the details of the checks come and there's a couple of results that maybe review suggested. For example, in this case, in this migration, the default table space will be modified in ADB to data. This is well, it's more like informative message instead of an error message. But you can see that all the checks that the CPAT tool does gives you information about the, and even suggest you to review some aspects in the source database. In this case, for example, this information about the schemas will not migrate because there's some restrictions in the migration for that. But besides that, for example, it checks for the stream's pool size. It checks a lot of information. So, but the important thing is the check result here that they are passed all the checks. So everything is okay, and the migration shouldn't be a problem. Okay. So with this, we say that the migration has completed with no errors. Everything is good. We can check again the log file, and you see all the details of the phases and all the activities that has been done throughout the migration. And just to check, if we now go to the target database, which is an autonomous database, as we saw, we can see that refreshing the users. Here we can see the migration test new user, which is the schema that we migrated with the tables. And yeah, we can check, for example, if all the rows in the tables have been migrated or not. And again, so you can see that 5 million rows. So the same results that we have here. So all the information from the DB migration test schema has been migrated to the target database. So, and with this, we can say that the migration is successful. And that's all for the demo, yeah. I think.
Yeah, thank you, Carlos. Okay, so now thanks, Carlos, again for the demo. Now let us go through some of the use case or business use case for the ZDM. Okay, so as you can see in the slide, okay, we can use ZDM for physical migration, whether it is a physical offline migration or an online migration from a Oracle database running on Linux to the co-managed database like Oracle Base or ExaDBD in the cloud. So you can use an object storage if required, where the source database backups will be copied over, and from there it will be restored to the target. Or something I have not mentioned here is you can also use direct data transfer, which is also possible using ZDM physical migration. And in the same physical migration, we can use it to migrate from on-premise to Exadata on-prem, or also to Exadata Cloud Customer. And in addition to object storage, you can use existing ZDL array or NFS or other external backups to keep the backups of the source. So this is also possible. This is also one common use case that we are seeing. Now we have seen two physical migration use cases. Let us have a look at the logical migration use cases. So you can migrate the Oracle database running on Oracle Solaris, which is a big Indian platform, to any of the co-managed databases in OCI using logical migration. And along with the logical migration, as Carlos said, we can easily do the non-CDB to PDB conversion. Or if your database is running on, say, 11.204 in Solaris, you can directly come to 19C using the logical migration. Now, this is a similar use case, but I mentioned it here because this is a common use case for us. We see a lot of customers from IBM AX, which is a big Indian platform, coming to OCI. So here also we can have logical migration from the big Indian platform. And again, non-CDB to PDB and cross version can be done. Now, if you ask me, is it only method? Okay, because I saw one question regarding this. Can we do physical migration from cross-platform? It is possible with RMAN cross-platform transportable table space, but with ZDM, it is not yet in ZDM. So if you are coming to ZDM for a migration from a cross-platform, then it has to be a logical migration. And then this is again very common use case. Okay, and you might be wondering why I'm specifying logical migration when you are coming from Oracle database on Linux. Yes, more frequently or most probably, most of the migration scenarios you will be using physical migration because that is much easier when you are coming from Oracle database on Linux. But there are few scenarios where, we want to go for only one schema, or you want to migrate only few schemas like incremental migrations from Oracle database on Linux. So in that case, yes, instead of physical, you can go with logical migration. So in a nutshell, okay, ZDM is a user-managed software where user is responsible for installation, patching, and it offers you the physical and logical online and offline migrations. You can also use ZDM to migrate to on-prem, for example, like Exadata on-prem, and also for the cloud. There is no graphical user interface, but CPAT is integrated with ZDM. You can use it for fleet-level migrations because with the same ZDM host, you can perform multiple migrations in parallel, and you can also customize the job. And of course, you have all the audit capabilities available with ZDM. So that's it. I think we wanted to cover. Okay, you can always go to ZDM product page, and it has all the documentation, of course, some videos and guides, and some of the live labs that we have published. So all those links for the live labs, everything is available on the ZDM page. So I hope, that is what we wanted to cover.
Thanks a lot, everybody, and have a great day. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you.